بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام والسنة. All praise and thanks belong to Allah for guiding us to Islam and for guiding us to the Sunnah. Our beloved brother, Abu Yusuf Khalifa, Jazakallahu Khaira, he mentioned some tremendous reasons and causes and affairs that lead to separation. Undoubtedly, we have seen much separation amongst the people of the Sunnah in America in particular, and in other places in the world as well. And there are a number of reasons, underlying reasons, that are causes for this. But before going into that, it's important that we come back and understand what does it mean to be upon the Sunnah and what is needed to be upon the Sunnah. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his tremendous book, Usul al-Sunnah, he mentioned in the opening of the book that Usul al-Sunnati indana, the fundamental principles of the Sunnah with us, التمسك بما كان عليه أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, is that we stick to and we cling to that which the companions of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم were upon, واقتداء بهم, and that we imitate them. If we had to sum it up in another, using another verbiage, what is the reason that we find this separation amongst the people of the Sunnah? Then it boils down to differing and being in contradiction to that which the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were upon. Lack of implementing that in which they were upon. If we had to sum it up in general, this is what it is that Salafiyya is not being applied, the Sunnah is not being applied, but there are some mukhalafat, there are some mistakes, and there are some differing as relates to the application of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and that which the companions they were upon. And from the reasons is ignorance, is that you have many individuals who they are ignorant of what is Salafiyya. Even though they call themselves Salafi and consider themselves Salafi, and they may say Salafi day and night, they are confused and have misunderstandings as to what Salafiyya is. And this is due to a lack of studying. This is due to a lack of knowledge. Imam Ahmad also in Usul al-Sunnah, he highlights that from the Sunnah, وَمِنَ السُنَّةِ اللَّازِمَةِ, from the Sunnah that is binding, الَّتِي مَنْ تَرَكَ مِنْهَا خَصْلَةً, from the Sunnah that is binding, from those aspects of Aqidah that are binding, that if an individual were to leave a single trait from them, a single affair or issue from them, لَمْ يَقْبَلْهَا, they do not accept it. وَيُؤْمِنْ بِهَا, nor do they believe in it. لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنْ أَهْلِهَا, then they will not be from his people. And then he goes on to mention the rest of the book, and he begins, he says, Al-Imanu bil-Qadr khayrihi wa sharrihi, to the end of it. Ala kulli hal, being Salafi is not just that one makes a claim and he says, I'm Salafi, and then that's it, he's Salafi. But rather, Salafiyya, it is based upon the Aqidah and the Minhaj. That the Aqidah is sound, and it is based upon that which the Prophet ﷺ and the companions they were upon and how they used to believe. And the Minhaj. And the ulama, they differ as relates to the meaning of Aqidah and Minhaj, so on and so forth. But what is apparent for now, and that we would like to mention from the definitions, is that they mention that the Aqidah, it is those beliefs and those things that are related to us internally. And the Minhaj, then they are the expression of those beliefs externally, right? And there is a connection. There is a connection between the two. Like there's a connection between that which is inside of a person and the manner in which they are to act. And we see that from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he speaks about that mudghah. إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب, of that morsel of flesh inside of the body, that if it is sound, if it is upright, then all of the body is upright. So there's a connection between the internal and the external. So if a person is truly upon the Sunnah, then you will find that being seen and shown upon their limbs. Now, there is no separation between that. And from that reason, you find some of the ulama saying that aqeedah and minhaj, they are the same, because there is no separation between them, because there is a definite connection between them. In any event, we find a disconnection a lot of times, and that is due to ignorance and not knowing what is Salafiyah. In order to be Salafi, an individual, they have to have the aqeedah of the Salaf. They have to have the methodology of the Salaf. And when you examine a lot of the issues that cause separation, when you look at them and you examine them, we can ask ourselves a very simple question. The manner in which things were done, or which things were understood, or things were handled, does this manner coincide with the way of the Salaf? Does this manner coincide with the way of the Sahaba? Does this understanding coincide with the way of the Salaf? Does this understanding coincide with the way of the Sahaba? Does this application coincide with that which the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba they were upon? And so when we look, and there's a few narrations that what I'm about to say is extracted from. Bismillah ta'ala, if there's time, we mention that. But when it comes to some of the asbab of inhirafat, some of the reasons for deviation, al-aqdi wal-minhajiyya, aqdiyya wal-minhajiyya, inside of the creed, inside of the methodology, then they are, but not limited to, right, the following: Bu'd an sunnah, Bu'd an sunnah to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that we are away from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Secondly, Bu'd an sunnat al-khulafa al-rashideen, that we are away from the sunnah of the khulafa al-rashideen. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he outlined to us in the hadith of Irbad bin Sariyah that they're going to come about problems. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, وَمَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, that whoever lives from amongst you, then they're going to see much differing. And then the Prophet ﷺ gave us the solution. He said, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِي عَضُّوا عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. So it is binding upon you to stick to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided khulafa after me, and to bite onto it with your humility. This is the what? This is the answer, the solution. This solution, this medicine, is due to the fact of what? Of individuals going away from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the sunnah of the khulafa. And that's why we see ikhtilafin kathira. That's why there's much differing, because of they're going away from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the way of the khulafa al-rashideen. Also, we find in this hadith, يعني عدم الحذر من البدعة عن البدعة, that there is a lack of warning, a lack of caution from innovation. So there are innovative principles and affairs that have crept in, that individuals, they are acting upon as if it is Salafiyah, and it's not Salafiyah. And this is, when this happens, this will cause, as the Prophet ﷺ said, ikhtilafin kathira, it will cause much differing. Now, also from the reasons that we find this type of separation, the like, is jahl fi din, as aforementioned, being ignorant about the religion, being ignorant about what is a Salafiyah. When an individual is ignorant about what Salafiyya is, it will be impossible for them to act in accordance to it or to establish it. How could they? They don't know what it is. Because Salafiyya has been reduced, unfortunately, the understanding of what it means to be Salafi, unfortunately, as the ulama, they mentioned, like the likes of Sheikh Muhammad Bazmoul and others, that in many circles, Salafiyya has been reduced to just refutations, an individual speaking about refutations. So day in and day out, if they speak about refuting this one or refuting that one, then this is as to prove to the audience or to the listeners or to those who are there in a conversation with, That yes, I too am Salafi. Look, I'm refuting this one, or I'm talking about this one, and so on and so forth. So in their minds, Salafiyya is centers around, or outlining, what would you say? Characteristic of it is just refutations. Now, don't get me wrong. Refutations have their place in the religion, and refutations are very important. But what was the manner in which the Salaf, how did they utilize refutations? Was that the majority of all of their conversations, the majority of all of their dealings, and so on and so forth? Or did it have its place and it have its time and it have its situation, because it's very important? But was that 80% of what they should talk about, or not? When we examine and we look at Imam Bukhari, when we look at Imam Ahmad, rahimahumullah ta'ala, and their reputations, we find that they're very small in comparison to the vast amounts of benefit in which they gave to the Muslims, teaching them about their religion. Ala kulli hal, ignorance about the deen. Another, and inshallah ta'ala, we can come back and we can expound upon these points. But another reason that you find this is hubbud dunya, is the love of the dunya. So individuals having an insatiable appetite for the dunya, then you find this will lead to separation, and this will lead to our humiliation. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, that we will have a wahan, we will have a weakness put in our hearts. And when the Sahaba asked him, "Al-wahan ya Rasulullah," and what is that weakness? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Hubb dunya wa karahiyat al-maut," love of the dunya and the hatred of death. And that love of the dunya and the hatred of death, even though we are numerous, because they asked that the reason we'll be in this bad situation, humiliation, people coming upon us and taking from us like they want. Would that be because of our small number on that day, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet said, he said, no, but rather on that day, you're going to be many, numerous. What? You'll be like the foam of the ocean. The foam of the ocean, there's no value in that, right? But what will cause this debasement? What will cause this? Hubbud dunya, love of the world, and the hatred of death. And that leads to issues and motivates people to act in manners that are not correct. Wabird an deen, and being far away from applying the religion, as we see, is rampant. And unfortunately, in many of the circles and individuals who are claiming to be upon the Sunnah, claiming to be Salafi, you find that they are lacking a lot, Allah musta'an, when it comes to applying the religion as it should be applied, and so on and so forth. And then this, it links back to what our beloved brother, Jazakallahu Khairah, he mentioned about sins. Sins, when sins become rampant and so on and so forth. This is not correct. Was this the way of the Salaf? Was this how the Sahaba they were? Right? Ala kulli hal. And the last one that I would like to mention for this point at this time, Tarikul Rujur' ila ulama, not returning back to the ulama, not returning back to the ulama, and also adorning ourselves with some characteristics of the mukhalifin, adorning ourselves with some of the characteristics of those who are in opposition, right? And all of this stems from being ignorant about the religion. But inshallah ta'ala, we'll mention that, inshallah, after giving our other beloved guests some time to chime in on what was mentioned.